Majority of males in jail grew up in fatherless home. Is this due to women not being strong enough or men not being man enough to own their responsibilities?
Oh, okay.
I don't think it solely has to do with the woman, the mom or their father. It does influence, yes, but I don't think it solely has to do with that because the environment that you grow up in has a lot to do with how the choices that you make in life and just what you're surrounded by. So surroundings, I believe, are just as influential as the home that you grow up in. So that's my opinion. Family. Support, love, unity. Just, yeah, the whole togetherness, just, yeah, relations, a lot of things actually. Mom, obviously, like mom, because it's that female thing, but I'm also very close to my dad, so I really don't know how to answer that.
I think it's because of the system.
Would you like to elaborate on that?
No, we'll do that later. Let's
Yeah,
get
man,
around
let's
first.
go through, bro.
Get
Stop
around
looking
first,
at me with your eyes.
It's the system.
Jeez Louise. Alright, cool. So similar to what Jess said, I think it's just an individual choice.
Yeah.
Like, it's down to neither. It's down to you. You're an individual. You fall and trip. It was my mum's fault. You're an EJ. It's your fault. Do you know what I mean? I think it's down to the individual. That's my view.
We are 4 siblings altogether. I grew up with both my parents, but I didn't physically grow up with them. Like, I was raised by my aunt. So myself and my brothers were raised by my aunt. And my parents were in Angola working. So they would come every now and then. But yeah, that was the dynamic of it. But both my parents have been very present in raising us.
Growing on what Louise said, yeah, it's true. A lot of people do live up to the hype of living in certain circumstances and what they have to achieve within those circumstances. If you were able to actually break through, you wouldn't end up being in jail. So I don't think it's a case of listening to your parents or having an active male figure or anything like that, because at the end of the day, we can have parents, we can listen to them or choose not to listen to them, and as soon as we leave that house, we're making our own decision. So I think it goes either way. It goes down to the person and what they aspire to be in life, you know. Like, if you want to be a gangbanger, then go for it. But hey, there's more to life, I guess. Everything. Family is everything to me. In terms of social life, in terms of security, in terms of friendship, your family is the first form of all of that. Do you know what I mean? So if your family is weak, I'm sorry, then you will be looking for outputs outside life, outside your family home. And you know what? 7 days of the week, I can actually stay at home with my family. That's how I feel. It's fine. Growing up with my mum was fine. No, I don't feel like I was at a disadvantage or in any way with having just a mum in the house. So no, I feel like my mum's done the best job that she could have done and has done. And being around the sort of family that I do have is only just reinforced that, yeah, family is key to the human life.
I believe that I think there's many factors at play here. I think can't say all women are not strong enough, but there are a few of them that aren't strong enough. I'll say can't at the same time say men are not man enough, because there's so many different factors which causes a man to leave his home. But at the same time, when you have kids, you got responsibility, and realistically you shouldn't be leaving your house. Even if you're leaving the kids with their mum, you have a responsibility to look after your kids in it, so you shouldn't be leaving your house and leaving your child without direction. At the same time, we all as people have our own will. Do you get me? We have our own say in what we do in our life. So yeah, like, can't fully blame our parents for our actions, but at the same time, if we're not given the correct direction to go in, then it's going to have an everlasting effect on us, on our decisions that we make. So I'd say it's a bit of both. Like, can't fully blame our parents, but we can't at the same time just go on like say we haven't got nothing to do with it, because do you get what I mean? So yeah.
Cool.
For me, that means everything, man. Like, I've got a tattoo on my chest which says family first, so that kind of puts everything into perspective, if that makes sense. But for me, family is everything, man. Family is everything, because at the end of the day, when you ain't got no one to turn to, like all your friends, all the associates, all the people that you have gone, like your family's always there, innit? Family are people that are put in your life that you don't get to choose who comes in and out. Like at the same time, yeah, you can cut off family members, but you can't choose who your bloodline is, innit? You can't choose, like for instance, you can't choose your mum, you can't choose your dad, you can't choose your brothers and your sisters. Do you get me? Like, we all come from the same pot, if that makes sense. We all come from the same roots, if that makes sense. So, like, who did I grow up with? So I grew up with my mum and my 3 siblings, so 2 little brothers, 1 sister. You get me? My dad was in and out. Obviously my grandma came to stay with me. I grew up in a family-based home really because on my mother's side, which was the Bajan side, like from Barbados, we was a very strong family unit. We kind of kept ourselves around my grandma, which is the pinnacle of our family. So we all stayed around her, we was always there all the time.
Yeah, I don't think it's specifically a man versus woman thing. But I will say that, yeah, parents do have a responsibility to guide their children. And I do think that in a number of cases, someone going down that route is because they've had too much choice. You can give your child too much free reign, and then they decide they want to be a gangbanger, not to do with anything to do with the system, but just because there was no firm hand in your household, or you just weren't even there to even give a hand or direction at all. So I do think that parents, as much as society and the environment and the system, I think parents have a responsibility to cater to their children, especially like even more so in the culture that we're in. I do think that in British culture, parents are quite laid back in terms of being responsible for their child. Like you actually hear parents blaming the schools or people at the youth centres or whatever, basically shifting the responsibility from themselves to society or the environment. So yeah,
I think it represents a lack of stability, man. Like, as men, growing up as men, and this is just a real, like, as men need a father figure. They need someone to look up to. They need someone to be able to shape their future around. Not necessarily follow step by step, but an idea of how a man should be, innit? Like, as a man growing up under a woman, women, they can teach us stuff, but they're women, innit? Like, they can't teach us everything about us as men. They can't teach us how to deal with certain situations as men. Like, for example, like, I got 2 kids, and my mum can teach me certain stuff to get me, like, and I can see certain stuff looking back on how my mum raised us and certain things to do, but as a dad, it's a completely different ball game. Like, I see the way my son is with my girl, and I see the way my son is with me, and it's different. Like, it's not the same. You get me? Yeah, I hear that argument, but at the same time, like, I feel there is a lot of blame to the schools. Reason being, they've taken away so much power from parenting. Like, you can't parent your child anymore. Really.
But how is the school taking away power?
Because I'll tell you why. Because, for example, here's an example of, I don't know exactly what school this is, but I know it's definitely out there and it can be researched. There's schools out there now which asks a child, what gender are you? And if a child turns around and said he's orange, they write down on the paper, he's orange. You ask your child, what religion are you? A child can say he believes in a pencil. They write down on the paper, that child believes in a pencil. A parent can come into school and argue that, but then the school's turning around and saying, you don't have the right to tell your child who he is or what he is.
If we're talking about children from fatherless homes, though. I feel like but I feel like you went slightly on a bit of a tangent in that sense, talking about how liberal schools are. Yeah. But then, like you said, is the onus not on is it not to do with parenthood?
Fatherless home. Fatherless home being that there's no dad in the child's life, whether that being the mum and dad aren't together anymore and he lives XYZ, or he's just not playing an active enough role in his children's life to be counted as a fatherless home. Do you know what I mean? Because you can, let's just say in the case that my mum she had me due to just having a sperm donor. Do you know what I mean? And that would be more or less be a fatherless home because there is no male figure in the house. Do you know what I mean? Or a male figure that I can turn to say, yeah, you know what, that's my pop. So that's an older man that I can look up to. Do you know what I mean? So fatherless home being that there is no active role model in that child's life or in that individual's life.
And just being
so on the flip side, so what are we saying, that just because there's no father in the house that children just need to go on wayward?
I'm saying.
So what about if it's just a case where there is a dad in the house and there's no mum in the house? Should the child still turn out to be the same way?
Yeah, I'm saying I think the system demonizes and criminalizes fatherless children. That's what I think.
But no one's fatherless though.
But when you're
I'm not talking. Yeah, okay. I'm not saying fatherless.
I mean in the sense like how would those behind structure know that?
That's what I'm saying. So when
that
you
is a fatherless child.
You're not going to say just.
I think the system criminalizes one parent. No, what?
Yeah, like you ain't got a dad, so you know what? Fuck it.
Get in the back. Do you get
what I'm trying to say? What I'm trying to say to you is again, like I said, if we're seeing things very structurally, not every single police officer is saying, I'm looking to get some single parent household kids right now. You know what I mean?
Well, the question is, how would you know that they are though?
Unless what I'm trying to say to you is that there is. Do
you know what I mean? Like, unless you go back to the house.
No, but let me say what you're saying though. Let me finish this point.
Because it's fatherless, it's going to do certain things or make certain choices that are very close to coming into contact. With police and eventually the system.
The structure's been demonizing single parent households for time, breaking. I'm going to talk for what's popular, the single mother household as well, destroying her, demonizing her, breaking her, allowing her to, forcing her to believe that she's not essentially worth.
Is that because we live in a male-powered?
And I think patriarchy, misogyny is definitely a big part of the way mothers are demonized because they cannot take care of their children because they're committing crime.
I hear what you're saying.
When the system is perpetuating the same.
Children who grow up in that and they don't end up in prison.
But
this is what I'm saying though. Like, all right, cool. We can say the system demonizes them, but when the numbers add up, and like it says, majority, of males that are in prison come from a fatherless or a single parent home, They've obviously done a survey. No one knows to what extent they've done this survey, but they have done a survey, and majority of the people in jail, come from that background, So, as much as we can say it demonizes it, we can't take away from the fact that it's still a majority of them that's in there.
Alright, question.
Do you get what I mean?
Do we live up to the hype that, you know what, I haven't got my dad around, so I've got to do this, I've got to do that, and contribute to my household, when in actual fact, a lot of people who do that, don't actually contribute to the household. So you're just living a lie in the sense that, you know what, you want to live up to the hype of, you know what, I'm a gangbanger, I hit road. At the end of the day, I'm doing this for my mum.
I think that there are
how many men actually touch roads and actually contribute to their household?
With single parent households where the mother or the father is doing just fine and is giving their child everything you can give a child in the world, and the child literally just wants to live up to the hype of, so that they can go make some drill music, they want to go and be part of the gang life.
But why would as a young person want to live up to the hype?
Because
society.
It's attractive.
You know what?
It's been made attractive.
You know what?
It's attractive in the sense that it's so common within our community that, you know what, it's something for us to relate to with another person. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I grew up in a single
parent
household.
It's a common enough feature for us.
Was involved.
Where's your dad? He's not
what I
about
would say to you, crime is a real issue. What I'm trying to say to you is, so we're coming with this idea that lots of people in jail come from single parent households. That's what we're saying, and we're saying, and so you're essentially saying is that it could be to do with trends.
Yeah, it could be anything.
But like, guys,
could be
let's
anything.
keep it. What's trends got to do with
Trends has
real
everything.
crimes?
Trends has everything
Influence.
to do with, even when we're talking single parent households. I would even say that people who have both their parents in their
Still,
households get into gangs because
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah.
They don't care for the life.
Yeah.
They don't know the lifestyle,
Because
but they
we're
just
saying
get
it's
involved
individual,
because.
there you go.
So you're saying majority of people choose that lifestyle?
Because on the flip
Some
side,
do.
a lot of people.
I don't say.
feel
I'm not
like-
saying majority choose it. I'm just saying that that does happen in that people go into that lifestyle not because their circumstance has caused them to. They've made
But we're
they've
talking
made
about
the
people going
choice.
to jail and the
Jail
makeup
could be
of
anything.
Yeah.
Jail could be anything.
Prison.
Like, you could go to jail for anything in this country.
Yeah, word.
But we know why people
So
are
like,
in jail.
System bit,
so
I know
like
what
you've
you're
been
saying.
you've been caught within doing certain structures of your lifestyle and whatever, just living that gang life,
Yeah.
and you've gone to jail. It could be for anything at the end of the day. But
Yeah,
you know,
but the fact
something
is-
that we might see as something as
So that's what I'm saying. Single
But
parent
that's-
house. I've been
No,
criminalised
it's
and
not.
demonized.
It's not. No, I
think-
don't think it's due down to
his
being.
bit does come in when it comes to the judicial process. When it comes to deciding whether they go down or not, that's when your bias or unbiased
Yeah.
can come
Because
into
of
it.
the
I get
background
it.
of it. But
And that's not just the only way. I don't think that just the judicial process is the criminal. It's not just the judicial process. I feel like in every single corner of the world that we're living in today, I think the single parent household is just being
Carries heavy
continually
stigma.
destroyed.
So
And
that
it's-
being said, John, sorry, that
Yeah.
being said, we can come up to the common ground that there are more single women than there are single
don't
males
have them
living.
facts.
No, but
yeah.
due to the
Experience,
statistics,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
You
do
can
you know what I
say
mean?
that,
So,
but I
like,
don't
so that
know.
being said, like, shouldn't we more or less push like the what's the word? Not comfort, but support.
I don't know. Okay, well, I think when I think of family, I think of relationships, and then I think of connection. So, just kind of like the ability or a place where you can connect with people. So it might not necessarily even be sort of your biological family, but the concept of family for me means connection, being able to connect. I think just having to go through the marriage that she went through with my dad. I mean, we're all human beings, everyone makes mistakes, but I think being married to my dad and my dad's family weren't the nicest people to my mum. I think she was very strong staying as long as she did. Also because the marriage was abusive. And obviously she stayed for us, but when she couldn't take it anymore because she obviously didn't want to lose her life, she had to leave the marriage. So I will say that she's a fighter for being there as long as she was.
His bit does come in when it comes to the judicial process. When it comes to deciding whether they go down or not, that's when your bias or unbiased
Yeah,
can come
Because
into
of
it.
the
I get
background
it.
of it. But
And that's not just the only way. I don't think that just the judicial process is the criminal. It's not just the judicial process. I feel like in every single corner of the world that we're living in today, I think the single parent household is just being
Carries heavy
continually
stigma.
destroyed.
So that
And
being
it's-
said, John, sorry, that
Yeah.
being said, we can come up to the common ground that there are more single women than there are single
don't
males
have them
living.
facts.
No, but
yeah.
due to the
Experience,
statistics,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
You
do you know what I
say
mean?
that,
So,
but I
like,
don't
so that
know.
being said, like, shouldn't we more or less push like the what's the word? Not comfort, but support to these single parents.
But
to
this
say-
is where my argument comes in, because we can push support to them, but at the same time, the power's been taken away from them to direct their kids. And that's where I go with schools, and they have an implement, because we send our kids to school, yeah? And like, okay, for instance, like, you grow up in this is
Too
a
much
very
for them to
touchy
take.
subject I'm going to go into, innit? But I'm
Are we
not
trying to
going
open that
into
can
it
of
with
worms,
any-
or are we trying to
I'm not-
open
no,
that?
no, no,
Son,
no.
open it.
No,
No,
I'm
I'm
not
not
trying
opening
to though. You're the ones
Don't
there.
worry about him.
No,
son.
but
No,
what I'm
but
saying
we
is
trying
like, bro,
to-
like for
What's the
example,
point?
I could live in a household where homosexuality isn't necessarily accepted, yeah, but I can't teach my child that our
That
culture
is not allowed within
is
our culture. and
that
then
we
send
don't
it
do
to
that in
school.
our culture. I'm not allowed to teach my child that.
It's true.
Do you get what I mean?
What?
I wouldn't exactly say that it's something I can relate to, in the sense that although I wasn't around my dad, he was there. So he was supporting me financially. He may not have been at a point, he may not have been present emotionally. like he was, which was what kind of made our relationship rocky, in that I grew up having a dad who was present, both financially and emotionally. My dad was there for me when I was a little girl, so he used to take me out on dates. And then he remarried and had another wife and had other children, and it seemed as if that shifted his how he treated his children from my mum. So I wouldn't say that I connect with that specifically, but I guess aspects of it, so him not being present maybe emotionally as much as he used to.
This is where my argument comes in, because we can push support to them, but at the same time, the power's been taken away from them to direct their kids. And that's where I go with schools, and they have an implement, because living for certain people.
Culture, let's use religion, because people don't joke about with their religion. I guess culture, you can say, okay, yeah, we can override that. We can't necessarily override religion. So if religious, you know, on a religious basis, I want to teach then let's not just use homosexuality. Go on. If on a religious basis, I want to teach my child something, I can't teach my child because at school they're going to tell them
you don't go to a secular school.
What?
No.
It's not about secular, because for example, I'm a Christian, so I'm going to teach my child that no sex before marriage. I'm going to explain to them why that is the case.
And we don't have sex and we don't have sex with the same sex.
They're going to have sex education at schools at really young ages as well, because schools are doing it from as young as 5 or 6.
Yeah. But then what's the trouble is there? It's conflicting. It's down to that individual.
But again, sometimes what's a child?
No, but what I'm saying,
be a child though. Why, for example, now schools are teaching
about choice. That's what you was talking about.
No, it is choice.
Yeah,
but you can't give a 5-year-old. You can't give a 5-year-old choice like that.
When it's you know what, one thing I find interesting, when you want to when it's easy for criminals to have choice. Oh, my child, you know, he hasn't got no choice. But it's easy for you to say, you know what, he done the crime.
No,
he's allowed to go to jail because he had choice.
At the age of 5 and 6, you don't have a choice.
You don't have no choice.
So what choice do you have? What do you know about life?
No child should be told, you know what, you're not a boy, you're not a girl at the end of the day. Because, I'm sorry, biology deems that you are a boy or a girl at the end of the day. No. Because it goes back to
why are you bringing that? Why are you bringing that?
No, it goes back to what your point is. No, it's what your point is at the end of the day.
Family, I think it's just a sense of belonging, and it's a group in the most structural sense. It's a group, and you can then bring in certain feelings that you have about family. I'll start off there, innit? So in my sense of understanding is that family is about belonging, loyalty, and safety. I think safety is a big important part of family, and also responsibilities come as well. I'm just going to use certain words in it because I don't want to talk too much. I believe that growing up in a fatherless home was like growing up in a fatherless home, and there are some disadvantages and advantages, but purely if you feel like there's issues like violence or crime, for example, you can find problems that stem from from people that come from fatherless homes. I'm not saying that there are advantages or disadvantages, but I'm saying if you look at a problem and you want to know why that problem's happening, you can say it comes from this. That's what I'm trying to say.
What I will take from it is what I said at the beginning. Yeah. I think even what we're talking about in terms of crime, I feel like a lot of it stems from the fact that children are given free reign when they're young to decide.
Yeah. And that's like
it's got to do with the parents.
And this is what I'm saying about free reign. Yeah, as parents, we can't uphold that reign, and we can't teach our kids exactly what we want to teach them. Because when they go into school, they're getting taught something completely different.
Then if they was to go,
you can't take them out.
I will homeschool my child.
But taking a child out of school and homeschooling, that's not fair on your child. Why is that fair on your child? Because you're taking him out of society. But you're taking him out of society. Why? Because of the fact that you can't teach him what you believe, what you deem to be right or wrong.
I feel like let's go back to the question,
right? Where maybe the child is given more choice than what they have. This is what you're saying.
All
basically.
right, cool.
Let's just change to a society where the child hasn't been given, and the same still happens. Then what? Then what are you going to base that on then?
Then they're just a crook.
That's where it falls into the line of, all right, as parents and as guardians, we've done everything we can do to try and direct our children.
No, but the question
That's when
is,
it's
where
like
do you?
the child's decided to off his own
Where do
line.
you draw? The question is,
Exactly.
where do you draw the line?
Yeah,
where
that
do you
is,
draw the line? Because you can say, oh yeah, it was the
Blah, blah,
individual
blah.
that chose to
Yeah.
go into crime. It was the system, or it was
The
their parents' fault.
parenting.
Where do you draw the line?
So
Wait,
you
yeah.
think even someone who commits a crime at 60, for example, you feel like
Jesus, what's he doing at the age of 60?
No, but it's true. A lot of information we
That
take
makes
as
sense.
young
At 60
people
will
that
still
directs
be.
our life. And
Yeah.
if we're not directed
in the right,
in a right kind of sort of way, like, all right, cool, like, there's gonna be instances where, like, for instance, like, I could be a church, like, my dad could be a pastor, yeah. My dad has instilled like godly things into me, yeah.
do the opposite.
And then, like, some point along the line, I do the opposite. But because the fact that those good stuff have been instilled into me,
That foundation.
when
Those are not
stuff
the people,
goes wrong,
Those are not the people.
it doesn't necessarily have to be like a pastor child or whatever, like, but good morals,
Foundational
good
things,
good foundations have been instilled into me, yeah. Like, right, I could go out there and do something bad, innit, and cool, like, that's my decision. But at the same time, because those good things have been instilled into me, when I do something bad, it clicks in my head, like, right, I know I'm doing something bad. If I haven't been given the knowledge,
the choice, yeah.
So
the
and
knowledge
shows
of
the
whether
difference
Just
between
like
good and bad, I'm not
So
gonna
you
know.
You just said your dad's
It's someone's
you just said your
fault.
dad's a pastor, so you just basically just disapproving. You just already stated your argument, saying
We also have to
that a
understand,
father
yeah.
is needed at home.
No,
That's
we
literally
also
what
have to
they're saying.
understand you. Not a lot of children, or should I say every child, is happy with the choices that their parent has made.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So you're
Whether
saying-
that be whether they're still together, because a lot of couples that are together aren't actually together. Do you know what I mean? More time is for just an image for the children to say, you know what, we're together. This is what we need to have, and that in itself would allow a child to rebel.
So then it is
Yeah.
the
You
individual.
know what?
Then.
So then
I
Yeah, I
you
think
know
it does
what?
fall down to the individual.
I hear what you're saying. I do think in cases where parents can't be together, or there's an absentee father, a father's not alive, there needs to be a father figure. I'm sorry. How we were created to be, there needs to be a presence of
I believe
a
that.
female,
especially
you know, or
You know what,
a
it's
mother,
female
or
But
and
female
father
people
I feel
figure.
like the-
And that could be your uncle,
But
that
that's-
could
Yeah,
be your
that's how it
older
is.
brother,
Relation.
whatever.
Yeah.
There
I
has
do
to be
feel-
a
I do
presence
feel-
of a father figure
Yeah.
and mother figure.
I
It
think
doesn't
can't
have to
teach
be
a
I
man
think
how to be a
I
male.
think the suggestion
Yeah.
that
But
This is where
there
too much
needs
of
to
the
be-
experience right now.
it
Too much
needs
of
to
the
be
entertainment
present.
right
I think
now.
the suggestion that a woman isn't strong enough to have.
I want to
It's not
say
about
she's
strength.
strong. I want to
It's
say
not
I
about
don't.
strength.
It's not
I would
strength.
say the same
Because
thing
for-
for a single father raising their child.
So
Because
two
to
parents-
even
no,
there needs to be a mother
because to
figure
even to
present.
raise a child by yourself,
yeah.
you have to be strong enough.
I-
Do you know what I mean? To
I
go
was raised
work,
by
to
my
come
dad.
home, and to say,
My-
you know
my
what,
mum wasn't at
I've got to
home. I
look
was
after my
raised by
child,
my
fam.
dad.
That is strong
So-
enough for you to do, bro. To
Yeah.
even still deal with all their troubles and everything else along with what you're doing in life. Shit, that is pretty strong.
But
Do you know what I mean? I think
that-
it's lazy for both parents to be working out and for no child to be working out. Do you know what I mean?
But even though you have those two things, it's not a guarantee that
It's
you
not a
won't
guarantee.
end
It's
up
not.
in prison.
And I
No,
think
no,
that's
no,
what
no,
that
okay,
comes down
yeah,
to
no,
individuality.
It's not,
It's
yes,
different.
but that goes for everything in life. You
Yeah.
can say, oh, you know what, yes, we have everything set down
People
right,
just want
and
more
someone can
sometimes.
go the wrong way. But what we are trying to figure out is the absence of that thing
Father,
a
yeah.
factor in people being in prison.
I
I
just
say
think
yes.
people want more.
I
I
say
personally,
yes.
I don't know if it has to be
Does it
two
have to be
people,
two
but in order
This is
to
where I'm going.
relate
It doesn't have to
to
be
how
two
your
people.
own circumstances are going out, you need someone of either that same sex or someone that's gone through the same situation that you have been. So you know what I mean? So if you're my mum,
Go on.
no, if you're my mum and you've been through like, let's say, let me say if I was a gangbanger and everything, and you're my mum and you've been through gangbanging, then I could be like, you know what, mum, I can take certain tips from you or see where you went wrong or where I can go right. Or
But it's different for a girl and a boy.
It is
why
different.
It is.
And what I'm trying to say is ultimately, yeah, like now I've got a point. Like everyone, you get me? But ultimately, it's down to the individual, innit? Ultimately, it's down to the individual, yeah, because we all decide what we do, innit? However, how we are as people and how we think is affected by our environment, yeah. And if we're not given the tools or instructions or some sort of advice, like direction into what's good or bad, yeah, we're not gonna know what's good or bad.
Yeah.
Like, and that comes from like as a child, we don't know nothing. Like coming into the world as a baby, we don't know nothing. All we know is
do
what
you
we're
need
taught.
both?
I don't think you need
I say
That's what I'm saying.
be honest,
ultimately,
But her
I
argument
thought-
is you need both.
I think you need
Ultimately-
both. I
As
think
long as
the
you have
absence
that.
of one creates a bias from the jump.
You think it creates like a void?
Not a void,
But-
not a void,
Yeah.
but a bias. I'm a woman. I'm going to talk from the perspective of
What's
a
that got to do
woman.
with crime though?
Crime, you won't be able to ever, as a woman, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, but
for me,
if my,
okay,
let's say
even
if I had a
let me
daughter,
speak
John, I would
individually.
never be able to advise her in
or
the way of a guy
specifically, if-
doing crime. Never.
I wasn't even raised in the UK. I was raised in Nigeria, so I don't really have a concept of knife crime, so to speak. I hear things from people that I'm friends with, and I speak to people that I know, family that I have here that lived here and lived in certain areas. But even as an individual, I can't speak on that. So if I had a child that I intend to give birth to here and raise here that goes into crime, what am I going to tell them? What am I going to
You can
tell
only say
them?
son, stay away from
You
all
know,
of
so,
that.
but if I'm, for example, if I married someone who grew up here and was raised here and was raised in that area,
Yeah,
they
they-
have something to offer them.
But,
But,
then
even
at the
outside
end of the day,
that,
though, at the end of the day, a person will make their own decision because I'm pretty
Right.
sure any
But then-
person who does commit crime at one point of their life has been told, you know what, don't do that.
But then you have the argument that they have so many options. So do you blame the people that gave them the options or the person who picked the choice?
Can I
I don't know,
introduce-
like they say,
can I
rules are meant to be
introduce
broken,
something?
You
innit?
get what I mean? Are you going to penalise the parents because they're giving them too many options, or are you going to penalise the person for picking out of those options that were given to them? Family means, I just think of the generic like nuclear family. Maybe because I study sociology, you learn about the family, but for me that's not how it is anymore. I think family is you're related by blood, but then not everyone's family. So like I have a lot of family, but I only have a small family, if that makes sense. As the person for picking out of those options that were given to them.
Can I introduce something to you and you lot tell me what you think,
Oh.
innit? So I'm suggesting, I know you're gonna think conspiracy theorist and that. I'm suggesting the system. I'm not even gonna say the system because it's just been tainted. The just discourse about what the system is just been tainted with disapproved. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna say the way this country is structured, it is out to get kids from single parent families and put them in prison. And I genuinely believe that. And I'll tell you how if we look at the socioeconomic politics of a family and we look at if you have two parents in your house, just based on a socioeconomic understanding.
More security.
Okay, more security.
It's more security.
More money.
I
More
understand what
money.
you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but
Alright, cool, more support.
I actually what you're saying. I do know one Donny, one guy. He said that police have come to his house one time, and they turned around and said, "Oh, I don't see no pictures of a dad here." That shouldn't have any kind of input on what the person is doing in life. Do you know what I mean? Like you shouldn't even have to come out and say that. If you can think it, by all means, but it shouldn't have to be a case of you coming into my house and saying, "No, I don't see any
Observation.
pictures."
But why?
Maybe my dad's not photographic. He might not like pictures. Photographic.
It's a photographic.
You know, like you never know at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
What I was gonna say, bro, I
shouldn't
feel
have
like
to
we
be.
really need to think about what drives people to crime, and really and truly, just saying
struggles, man.
Popsy being around isn't enough of a draw. But if we look in the fact, if we look and understand what a family makeup that isn't likely to lead someone to is having two parents.
Yeah.
Fatherless home. What I instantly think of is a stereotypical single parent home without a father. That's what I think of.
What drives people to crime, and really and truly, just
the struggles,
saying
man.
Popsy being around isn't enough of a draw. But if we look in the fact, if we look and understand what a family makeup that isn't likely to lead someone to is having two parents.
Yeah.
We
Like the
understand.
nuclear family.
But
A nuclear
I believe-
family, but that is because of the demonization.
But those two parents have to be happy enough to project that image onto their
Onto
child.
the- yeah.
Because you know what I
That's
mean?
another
Because
thing.
you can get
As a
an
child,
aggressive
they
dad,
don't
you can get
realise
an
it.
alcoholic mum and all that other
and-
type of shit.
and
And
not-
that's gonna project negative images onto their
Yeah,
child.
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
So-
And then another statement is that statistic is not enough for me, because I'll give you an example. I have a friend, you know what I'm trying to say? I got a friend, basically, he comes from a single parent household. He's committed crime upon crime. He's not in jail.
Why has he committed crime?
But what I'm just trying to say to you is that it's not enough to just take that.
But obviously, if he does go to jail,
But he's not never going to jail.
Yeah,
No,
but
but
if he does go to
because he's
jail,
put
he
himself in
becomes
that position.
he becomes that part of that statistic.
But he's
of
out of
being
that.
in a-
But he's
in a
out of that.
single-
He's out of that statistic now.
No,
If he
Yeah,
has.
yes,
now
but
he-
that's because
now
he
he
hasn't
is.
been caught, so to speak. But I would say you can't use that as an example, but because that's just because he hasn't.
So
been
what I'm saying is
caught.
that statistic doesn't tell you everything about what the issue
No, I
is.
get that.
I mean, and it's easy for you to say because statistics are. I mean, for when you see like in newspapers and they put some statistics, we say, yep, it's them people. Those people like they make their own decisions. It removes blame from people.
Anything
If
else?
you get vulnerable people, you need a strong society to help those people. If people are vulnerable, all you need to. I think sometimes we forget that we're in a society. We all think we're on this planet alone, innit? And it's very unfortunate, and it's unbelievably sad to think everybody's just an individual and we're all walking in this planet alone. And I think it's not enough to think
That
that
being
if we want to
said,
work in vibrant society.
That being said as well, John, I feel like a lot of parents are much younger now than they were beforehand. So a lot of relationships aren't secure enough relationships to say, you know what, we're gonna have a baby together today.
Everyone's having babies. No one's getting married.
I don't think even marriage needs to be.
Marriage
it
No,
doesn't need to
marriage
be.
is a secure
I don't think
marriage.
it needs to be. I don't
No,
think it
it's
needs to be a
not. Marriage ain't
concrete
secure at all.
blueprint.
have to
Yeah,
be.
but if a person and
But
another
you know,
person
isn't
have
it
enough
funny
good
that
understanding,
we're
then they can get
Marriage is
along.
just a title.
We're old
Doesn't
enough.
mean
Oh,
anything.
but you're old enough to have a baby.
Okay.
You're old enough to bring a
You don't
child
need to
into
be-
the
no,
world.
no, but
but
not
you're
every
old
marriage-
enough to
not
get
every
married.
marriage
I'm not
is,
saying that you
have
have
to
to
be
get married,
married.
but how can you say you're not ready for marriage, but you're ready for a child?
What is marriage?
What are children?
No. What is
Having
marriage?
a child is
No.
more
What is marriage if
responsibility
it's not a
than being
relationship?
married.
But when you
Told
say
to
marriage,
believe that we're going to get married and we're going to
Yeah.
spend our life with another person. I don't believe in that. That's bullshit in my eyes. I feel like people will make their decisions.
Listen, don't spoil my dreams.
No.
Get married.
At the end of the day, at the end of the day, a person is entitled to do whatever they want in life, but
Yeah.
regardless whether you're in a relationship or not. You can be married today, but and still go and have another family outside.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Regardless, bro.
Yeah,
Do
man.
you know what I mean?
That's why
You don't even need that title to go and do that.
Shout out to the
You know what I mean?
unruly.
You don't even need all of that to go and do that. So at the end of the day, I don't feel like we should live to say, you know what, I need to this, I
But
need that, I
feel
need
like-
that,
I feel
in order
like,
to
like
say.
you're saying, what's the difference? I feel like, if I was a guy, for example, which I'm clearly not, if I was a guy, and I got with this girl and we had a baby, I could be like, oh, do you know what? I'm just gonna like leave. Like,
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
do that if I'm married to you. I'm tied to you. It's not about strong mum, unmanly dad. Do you get what I mean?
No, I think
Yeah,
ultimately it is an individual choice. However, there are so many factors that are at play here.
You get more time. Listen,